get started here in just 1 second, waiting for a couple others to come in.
Damn it.
Chris, do you have anybody else outside?
One Bonnie. Using this. Damn it, that thing came on again. You want to test it? You want to go out there with your live stream?
Scott, these are my hotspots. Can you unlock one? I'll test it.
Or Chris could.
Chris.
Lady, go ahead. Phone the mics. Go ahead and get started.
All right, we're unmuted.
All right, we are unmuted. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. When we kick off the mid-year budget retreat, but for now, I'll call the special council meeting to order and turn it over to you, Ms. Beth.
Authorization for staff to police for law enforcement assistance and support of the North Carolina Police Department, Carrollton County Sheriff's Office.
I'll make a motion.
Second. All right, a motion and a second to approve the MOUs, A, B, and C. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Authorization for staff to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Lieutenant Chief for vehicle use agreement with the fire.
Make a motion to approve the MOU.
Yeah, second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any discussion?
We have a conversation about exactly what this entails,
Certainly.
the details of it.
Sure. So currently, we're without a ladder truck right now.
And this will allow us to be able to borrow one from the county. They're asking us to sign an MOU. It's pretty simple. But it'll allow us, it'll basically prevent this from happening again. It allows us to borrow one from them. We did reach out to other agencies about borrowing the truck as well. Just so happens that other agencies are in the same situation that we are. North Charleston is down 2 ladder trucks. Goose Creek is down a ladder truck, which mostly, they're not going to let us borrow one with, not having one for themselves as well. So the county does have one. They've been generous enough in the past to let us use some of their vehicles, but their administration is wanting us to sign this agreement. The same agreement that they have with us now would be with North Charleston as well. They've had North Charleston sign the same.
When do you expect us to get our truck back?
As a matter of fact, as I sit here, I got a text message that ours could be back either later today or tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
So, but I've heard that for 2 weeks. So, and it's all about parts. It's all the availability of parts. The other truck that we had sent off, it's getting repaired now, and it's up in Michigan, and it should be back the 1st of February. So I don't see that this is a very rare situation that we found ourselves in. But I don't anticipate this being the norm by any means. So, and this agreement would help prevent this from happening. So,
Thank you.
yes, sir.
And I just add to that, I spent a couple hours with the fire department. They took me around in their different fire trucks to show me how each of them operate and the importance of each of them. And I didn't understand before that, but I can understand now while each of our different fire trucks is important for the town.
Any other comments?
Yeah,
Councilman?
Brent, is this a quid pro quo? We do the same thing for Dorchester County, what they're doing to help you?
We've offered up before to other agencies as well. We haven't made someone sign an agreement, which is fine with us. We just exchanged the rightful information, and it's kind of like you loan your personal vehicle to someone else. You just take care of it. And in the agreement, it says that, should anything happen to the truck, we will be responsible for it, and likewise.
Yeah, I think the county and the town could benefit from that kind of relationship.
Sure, absolutely.
Actually, and I have one more question. Does this item 2 on the agenda, does that include, that MOU include for our Metro Task Force? Because I was on the Metro Task Force for the county and the town, and that was incredibly enlightening.
Yes, ma'am. So the reason why I'm actually proactively re-entering into these agreements is we have 2 new sheriffs that just got sat last week and a new police chief that got sat last month. So I'm just proactively going backward so that it's clean, so that I have their names on the documents rather than their predecessors. And so this does include any and all operations with the sheriff's office, to include Metro Narcotics.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. And that concludes the front end business. We'll move into opening remarks, and thought this was a great opportunity to wish everybody a happy new year. 2024 was certainly a tough year for the town. And I think we demonstrated our strength and resiliency in working together. I appreciate each and every one of you through the rocky road of 24. We had some very challenging public safety interactions and issues, and some complex public perception issues that we waded through. We had a cyber attack that was very substantial, that impacted pretty much everybody's operations. And I believe each and every one of you went above and beyond to make sure that service to our customers didn't get neglected, and I really appreciate that. We had a flooding and catastrophic tropical event. Certainly experienced some trouble there, and we went through a transition of leadership, which is also a challenging time. And I'm honored to be able to sit here with each and every one of you, and thank you for helping get us through 2024. As we move into 2025, to get us awake before we move on into project updates, I just want each person to let me know, we don't want to think backwards, we want to think forwards. What are you excited for in 2025? And I'll kick it off to you, Ms. Rhonda. What are you excited for in 25 and what is keeps coming around?
Improved processes and efficiencies. Townwide.
Have no right statements about processes and efficiencies, not only for save us money, but to provide them service for citizens as well. So, I don't think we're here, but I'll put it to God. No disruptions before this year. Stop.
I'm looking forward to full staff for the year. That's will be over next year, and also looking forward to getting started with the joint vision plan with the county and seeing where that.
I'm looking forward to hopefully getting professional development on the staff and everybody better. I have 3 goals this year, but that is for the town business, and that's more funds allocated for sidewalks, retirement for police and fire, and a more structured vision plan so we know where we're going.
I spent some time with Wanda Cooper, who's doing the workforce housing on Cedar Street. I think we need more of that. Which I think our big industries, they need people who can afford to buy a house. They can get the mortgage. So I think it's a symbiotic relationship between the people who work and the people who need people to work. So I'd like to see us put some emphasis on making sure that we have a situation where the people who've been here versus the people who are coming here with the big bucks and basically taking over the town. We need to make sure that we allow the people who've been here to develop something that it is, so that they can have a nice place to live, have good jobs, and help us to grow. We don't want to grow in a negative way.
Councilman.
It's State Park too. Sorry.
You're excited for a lot. Go ahead, sir.
Excited for the vision plan, seeing that become more concrete. And along with that, see Main Street kicked off. And hopefully 500 Main will move forward and we can take advantage of some of that. And also finding a way to reward y'all for what you do in a way that you should be rewarded. So, like Russ, I do appreciate what y'all do. You go over and above. Thanks.
I'm excited about another year with you guys, working, having the opportunity to serve with y'all. Y'all doing a great job, and I can't appreciate the work that you do. As far as town goes, I'm super excited about the prospect of our public safety facilities finally being caught up and getting to having a facility that meets the level of service that our public safety professionals provide in this town. Super excited about that. Along with the other things everybody else has already talked about in the street as well. I think 2025 is going to be an exciting year.
I'm personally the most excited about the vision. I think us having kind of a unified collective vision from our community, having them set the expectations for us really helps us work together and focus and prioritize on what we're doing. So I'm extremely, I've heard that several times, but I'm extremely excited for that opportunity. Mr. Slack.
I'm looking forward to working with you and this great staff to try and figure out how to do all the things that you're going to put in front of us.
I hope you're a magician.
Well, I'm really excited about the extension of the Burlington Myers opening soon and seeing how that's really going to affect our traffic flow, and excited to possibly look into other opportunities to work and help with traffic flow throughout our town.
Thank you very much for that. Because I'm not gonna say excited, but I'm gonna say I'm looking forward to some real conversations about improving traffic in our town. To a person in our town, every one of them is concerned about the traffic, and everybody who passes through here visits our town is concerned about traffic. So I want us as a body, as a staff, to have some real conversation on how to fix those things.
I'm really looking forward to getting back into my mobile fleet office.
Understand that.
And also to finally wind up the last of about 30 condemnation cases.
Despite 2024 having its significant challenges, there were also a lot of what I feel were very positive improvements, initiatives, process improvements, and so forth across the whole organization. And there are a number of them on the horizon for 2025, and I just want to see that momentum carry forward with those. I'm excited about continuing to push it down the road and make it all the more efficient and effective. So.
I'm excited about the challenges coming forward, honestly, and the opportunities to meet them head on. Our department is not afraid of challenges, and we don't shy away from them. We've accomplished an awful lot with, I think, with minimal resources, and I think I'm excited to see what they can do next. Honestly, I really think services we provide, we continue to provide. The men and women of our department, they're hungry and they want to provide more and more for our citizens, not just for their own good, but for the good of the people that we serve.
I'm excited about pushing the public safety facility forward, the Main Street Resiliency Project forward. Not as pretty, but consolidating our services like HVAC, we're kind of spread out all over the place. We've done that with janitorial. We're making those steps now. So I'm looking forward to doing that more because there's a lot of that cleanup that needs to be done throughout the town. So I'm excited about that and a lot of other stuff. So
I am excited about streamlining our citizen reporting and tracking and that the software that we have, making it more efficient, possibly some new software that's getting everybody on the same page. And most importantly, I'm excited about Maple Street extension being completed in 2025.
Is it going to be completed in 2025?
Well, probably the end of 2025.
I'll get
more about that.
That's exciting.
I'm excited for a lot of different things in Parks and Recreation, but we have some staffing positions open currently, hopefully filling those very soon. So very excited to be fully staffed again because we've been spread so thin recently, but we got a lot of great ideas for programs and events this year. So looking forward to kind of continuing to evolve and grow those to meet the needs of the community. And there's a lot of great ideas out there, so we'll be able to capitalize on some.
Due to the fact that our slate was involuntarily clean this year, we got to, looking forward to 2025 to where we can rebuild our technical infrastructure better than it was before. And moving forward with the new public safety building, that's going to be exciting to plan and make it the best in the world.
I'm excited as 2025. I'm excited for the vision of this leadership at the helm of Scott Slatton and the leadership of our council to publicly and privately support us as public safety, as well as all the department heads. What we once talked about was a building, was a concept that got talked about, kicked to the curb for years and years, has moved pretty quick, proactively. I'm proud of the fact that we have a staff that's fully staffed right now. We're the only organization around that's fully staffed in law enforcement. But that says nothing about me. It says everything about what you all have helped provide for me to allow me to make that a possibility, a reality. And so I'm excited about helping you all identify other funding sources that we can continue to aggressively and proactively and deliberately recruit and retain employees for the town of Somerville. And I think it's going to take a lot of people thinking outside the box in this room, like we've done, and doing things differently. I think that is the key to success of this town, is for us to do things differently than what we've done in the past. We've learned a lot from our failures and from our successes, and I'm excited about what we could do in 2025. I'm hoping that we can get this recruitment and retention committee back up and running under the leadership of Chris Grant, to include all the department heads and council members, so that we can put our best foot forward to help all of your departments continue to do what you do and strive as well as you have. So thank you.
In 2025, I'm excited for continuing to take our communication, public information to our level, and taking the innovation that we already have and taking it a step further, using video and then working with department heads to build strategic plans within their departments that they can follow, because there's departments that have their own communicators in there, and that they can follow and streamline and make it very easy and digestible when they are communicating for example, police, fire, parks and rec, right? And so just not trying to be stagnant, taking what we have already, maybe a newsletter, how can we innovate that, make it even better, make it even, more user friendly and stuff like that. So that's what I'm excited for.
I'm looking forward to working closer with administration. So just first year, I'm looking forward to really getting to work with you.
All right, Lenny.
I'll speak up because I don't have my front of me, but I'll try to talk about. I'm excited that we're proposing a new IT department that may allow us, if approved, allow us to be more proactive instead of reactive. And, I'm hopefully more citizen engagement. We did just do a little class for some more citizens. It turned out pretty well, and I'm hoping to use more of that. I think this combination of the department hopefully will streamline some processes, make us more secure, but also make us more prepared in case incidents do occur. And just looking forward to that.
All right, Ms. Beth.
I'm excited about working with Miranda, our new admin assistant. She's really killing it. If y'all haven't seen the archive room yet, you can actually walk into it now. So she's doing a great job.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for that. And with that, we'll move on to project updates, unless you have anything to add on opening remarks.
No, I guess what I would add, Mayor, is that my intent here today for all of you is to, and Rhonda, this is going to be mostly Rhonda giving you information this morning, and then you'll hear from each of your department and division heads about the needs that they are going to have budgetarily for fiscal year 2026. I understand that in past years, perhaps those lists have been culled before they come to you. I would prefer that you see all of the needs that they have identified, so that you can best be informed about setting your priorities going forward as we move into the budget season, which obviously I think we're sort of unofficially kicking off today. We'll talk more about the budget calendar for fiscal year 2026 that I proposed. But I want you to hear updates on projects that have been underway for a number of years, and how much more we have to go on those. We're going to talk about not only road projects, but other projects, Main Street resilience, other things that Frank and others are going to talk about. And then we'll talk finances, and then this afternoon, the Department of Division heads will talk to you. So I want you, this is mostly an informational session to get you prepared with information, the first exposure to the needs that you're going to hear in more detail for fiscal 26. I'm hoping that we can all meet again in about a month to kick off a priority setting exercise for you, council, that will drive our budget discussions through the spring, and hopefully to budget adoption no later than the June council meeting. But that's my hope. But this is the beginning. So I'll leave it with that.
Very good. All right. Project updates.
Good morning. So just a quick update on our public safety facility. We have Brett Green with Creek and Associates here today. We're here at a milestone in the planning and construction phase of this project. We've just completed the preliminary design phase. Brett's going to kind of give you an update on that and some site development work that we've already laid out. We're also at a point now that we're getting ready. We have prepared the RFP for the actual contractor that's going to build it. So at that stage too, we've got that ready, get ready to advertise for it. So Brent's going to give you a kind of a quick update. So the preliminary planning design phase, Brent probably going to touch on this, was primarily concentrated on the floor plan of the facility and the exterior elevations. You're not going to see a lot of that up here on the screen today because it's a public safety facility, so we don't love that public layout. But that's where the last 3 to 4 months have been spent, really zeroing down to public safety, fire, and the courts to get that those rooms, offices, open space laid out for. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brent, and Brent's going to give you the quick overview, and then we're going to kind of go into Rhonda with the budget and how we're planning on funding this project. Brent Reed, Creek Associates. Thank you.
Thank you all for allowing me to be here this morning to kind of start the project and update discussion. Very, very excited. We've spent the last 3 months working with your very qualified and talented staff to come to the fruition of what we have to share with you. So again, this is our public safety campus. I think you all are familiar with the site we're at. So it's the location of the current services that are being provided. After looking at multiple sites in different ways and developing this with you all last year, it was determined by that process that this was the best site for multiple reasons to redevelop all. So hopefully some of this looks familiar to you. This is development from our advanced planning phase, and this is our site plan. So we have 4 structures. Yes. So we have 4 structures on the site. We have the 3-story police department and municipal courts. We have fire station 1 and fire administration here. There will be a fleet and special ops facility at the rear. And then there is a parking deck and parking across the street. So all of these buildings together create the campus. One of our primary drivers, as we talk about how these multiple services occupy one site, is clear separation of function. And so one of the things that we look at is, okay, so we're going to have clear separation of functions, and we're going to have an entrance to police here, we're going to have an entrance to courts in the center, we'll have an entrance to the fire department on the right. So all of those things will be separated with the beige. The function with the most public volume is the municipal court, and so they are located on access to the center, immediately across from the parking deck, so that they would have the easiest flow for the citizens. We have accessible parking on the street here as well as in the garage. People ask us, sort of, where did this scoop come from? The one story behind that is that the fire station is required to sit back from the street a certain distance, but we really wanted these 2 facilities to read as one. And so that's really where that angularity and that design came from. That's creating this wonderful plaza space out in front of the public safety facility. That's where the scoop came from. We also are implementing a colonnade element, which connects those 2. And you'll see that in elevation here in a moment. The rear of the site will be secured for the public safety functionality, as well as a few spaces in the parking deck as well. And the site does slope where the parking deck is about 6 or 7 feet, and so we're able to take advantage of that, and we're going to have public entry points both off our property. So, as Frank mentioned, we're going to skip the floor plan phase. We're going to kind of get into what the exterior looks like. So we talked a lot about this, and I'll go ahead and disclaim that we're going to be going before the DRB here in February. So what we're seeing today is where we are prior to that approval. But when we study design in 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions. The UDO requires civic relief to be symmetrical. And while these are 2 buildings and either one of them alone are not symmetrical, the composition itself is a whole. Because you're able to implement that tower on the end, this tower on the end for fire, and then the center element, which is the municipal court. You can kind of see how the design graduates. I don't know if you can see these little boards that are tiny up here or not in front of it. Think about materiality. Obviously, it's a brick, primarily brick and cast stone facade, with the color palette that we're describing here. There you can see this column A. One of the things that unifies the design and firmly establishes the building face is this element that stands in front of really disconnect the design. So this is an elevation across the street. The parking deck it's a service facility, but it's also very important to this entire campus. So we wanted to reinforce campus. So you'll notice it looks like the architect. It'll be translated into thin brick and other elements that are parking deck appropriate, but it really does mimic and imitate the building so that it looks much like this is a rendering of an aerial view. So you begin to see kind of how the streetscape will be informed and the scale will be improved as you pass through there. A walkway here that would emphasize that pathway of to use support facility. You can see here the secondary and the other entrances across the street of the police. Here's the entrance to the fire station. Let's see, the design, anytime we do these, we're like, the building needs to convey a civic identity. We certainly feel like this does that and identifies this as a place of importance. This architectural style is transitional, right? That's what we refer to as essence. It's rooted in the past. It's going to have brick details and materials and textures that you're familiar with, but it's also going to have maybe some larger openings, the way that we treat windows. So it really is not contemporary, not old. It really is kind of mixture. We have a lot of these three towers. We ended up calling them civic lanterns, and that was kind of the label that we gave them as identity for each of these three entrances and separate functionalities that are happening on the site. You'll see them all throughout the site. We really do think that plaza can be inviting, and then this pedestrian pathway we talked about, that it would even be elevated so we can really make that feel like a safe zone. Here's a view a little bit farther down as if you were standing at the street level. Again, you can see the three-story facility. This is the entrance to the police department. We have a monument there for a fallen officer from the past. This begins to give you kind of what that feels like at the street scale, and you can begin to see that materiality and how the facade is articulated. The primary material color you see here is the with the primary. View from the other side, look from the other direction. Fire station kind of in the front there. We do have a flag wall, which happens at the end of this year, which will be branding. This will be the location. I'm so excited about having a flag located somewhere. I felt like that was an interesting element. The fire station itself really does blend in with the architectural style of the entire thing. It's intended to almost read as one building. Giving you kind of a view of just the entrance, so I'm standing across, I just left the parking deck and I'm headed to the porch, and we can use that pass code displays by identifying timeless kind of signage, as well as branding at each of those tower opportunities to reinforce what those functionalities are. One of the things that happened as we work through this phase is that the municipal court is actually on the second floor of this side of the building, so that if you're coming to court, you're going to go into that vestibule, and you're actually going to go upstairs on an elevator to go to those court spaces. What that allowed us to do is to provide some training and flexible space that can be for more than law enforcement use on the ground. That's something that will be a benefit for more than just the folks who use. And we wanted to end with something fun because of the design. Well, today the nighttime signature is just about as important as the daytime signature. These civic lanterns that we described would really be interesting elements that could clearly identify again those three functionalities and how you access the building for each of them. So again, our next steps are to present to you today. We're trying to get our facts together, and we're going to go for the ERB in February. And assuming that we can get approval from that crowd, we will be ready to be certainly into the business problem board. We jump into the next phase. I think that's all the very long time. So we have to try to get any questions anyway. Yes, sir.
You have the Belich Memorial there.
Yes, sir.
We already have a fire memorial that's kind of hidden in the bushes of Town Hall.
Okay.
And if we can have the space for that out in front of the fire department there.
Absolutely. There's multiple places where we can find an appropriate location.
And that's a fountain. Also, just to let you know.
I think that could be really nicely integrated into that side wall element that we were describing earlier. Thank you. I was actually aware of that. Really nice. Great.
Go ahead.
will the parking garage be able to be used outside of just public safety services when we have special events in the town? Will it be open and free to be used for all other purposes in the town since it is so closed and lockable?
Yes. That probably decision,
Yes.
I would assume the answer is yes.
That's the plan all along. Yes. Yes.
And it's gonna be free?
At this point in time.
Okay.
That'll ultimately be a decision that you as council would make. So, at this point, we've not contemplated charging for parking in that garage at all.
The design associated use board determined we wanted to do that to be implemented, the space is there, it would just be a decision.
And will GW's office be there as well? Or, no, okay, but like our public defender, or everyone related with the courts will be there, is that right? Is that what?
They don't call them anything, so I don't. The public.
All
Like
of
the
the,
solicitor.
all of the court functions will be housed in that facility. That's what our plan is right now. Where we have everybody spread out in multiple facilities now. The idea, the whole concept of this thing is to get everybody under the same roof so that they can miserate.
And it has been designed for the courts, and police department to flow together, okay, transporting prisoners and all that. But right now, it's not being done the best way right now. So we've implemented that in the plan. So basically tying all these departments together, including fire as well.
And if we wanted as council to put out there, since it's gonna be such a nice area, like you mentioned the fountain, but if we wanted to put a bike sharing station out there at that point for the town, and since it is so close to other parts of the town and for people that maybe need another mode of transportation, affordable mode, or just somebody that is wanting to go from there to the town, could that happen in that space, or do we have to talk about that this soon in order for that to happen, or can we talk about that a little bit later?
Yep, that's an opportunity for us. Actually, the code requires us to put bike racks out there. So we'll have bike racks throughout the site. And then if we ever want to go to the paid
Bike
rental,
sharing.
yeah. If
And
folks
frankly, you have suitable seating areas for the people who come to the court for justice.
Yes.
I think that's very important.
Yes.
So people
We've
can be
got
comfortable.
what I would call a very large waiting lobby area. Of course, the courtrooms are nice too. So upstairs and they're in the downstairs outside area, there'll be sitting area too. So
That's what I was gonna say, there's a nice waiting space indoor as well as that plaza space has seat walls, which also act as support protection, so there's sort of indoor and outdoor opportunities.
The floor plans, y'all are working on, y'all have pretty well worked on the floor plans, the principals who are gonna be in this facility. And Preach is working with your construction engineer folks to kind of price out this thing at this point. And so as we get to a point where we need to start making decisions on how to fund these spaces, then we'll need to make adjustments to floor plans. But all of these things have been discussed and incorporated into the floor plan at this point.
Can you, either Frank or you, walk us through the planning for this? You know, this is a substantial investment. We don't want to be talking about needing to do something like a public safety facility for some time. The intent of, doing this and doing this right is to plan for the future some length of time. It's been a while since we spoke to how that planning was incorporated into this design. Can you walk through that to, this is a plan designed for X many years, and it has opportunity to be built on to, correct? I just want to understand, walk us through that again, please.
I think, both of those. We went through a space needs assessment process that we went through with you all in 2018 and 19, and then we revisited that when we restarted the project here a couple of years ago. So anytime we plan a civic building, we cannot be full on day one when we move in. So we plan on a 20-year growth horizon, and that is the space needs assessment that was done. So there is, this building will meet those needs for a minimum of 20 years. And as the mayor just mentioned also, the building is positioned on the site so that expansion can happen to the rear, not on the front, but it can happen in the back part of the facility. So beyond the 20-year horizon, if there is need that comes, we want to have the opportunity for partnership there. We feel like these are 40, 50-year facilities and all.
And at this point, the price for that is still around 60.
At this point, the price is still where it was, and I think the next key phase of this process, as Frank mentioned, is when we get our senior risk partner on board, they will take this package that we generated, and one of their first calls of action is to put that. And that'll be the next chance we'll have to update you on, okay, this is kind of where we stand, and we'll be able to use that estimate to establish priorities, and if there are decisions need to be made, they can make those priorities.
And Rhonda and I are gonna talk more in a little while about financing for this project and others, but particularly this one.
Just to add something, if I may, this is a beautiful facility, what y'all pitching to us as well. I think it's gorgeous. And it's gonna be quite an undertaking to get this done. I don't think that's lost on any of us in the room. But I think it's also an important fact that we ought to throw out there. It's worth mentioning is we're not pioneering anything right here for this facility. If you look back to 1981, when the existing fire station was built, I think it was about 1989 when the current police station was built. Those were huge facilities for that time. I remember walking through the fire station in the early 80s as it being built, and I felt like I was walking into a large city, you know, that was so big. Of course, our town's grown, our departments have grown, and we've hit that point. We've gotten our 30+ years out of those facilities, and that's where we are now with these. And I just wanted to throw it out there on the floor, so just kind of bring us up to speed on that.
I just wanted to add one thing so everybody knew this. When he showed you this last year during the mid-year, y'all were asked, he was tasked with coming back to the department heads and asked us to cut. So we've cut, each department head has cut 10% of last year, which you saw, to create this. Because y'all didn't like the price, nobody likes the price, you're not gonna like the price when it's done. But I just wanted you to know, we did cut 10% of court, fire, and the police department to help with some of the cost savings. I think it's important to mention.
That is very good, thank you.
Any other questions on the public safety?
And I want to say this is possible. They will change. Maybe value engineering for other kinds.
Frank, real quickly talk about some of the ideas and thoughts that we maybe haven't talked about a whole lot in terms of finding resilience opportunities here in this thing and some possible funding sources for that.
Yeah, so actually we were on a phone call yesterday with our consultant on, there's some FEMA funding available, grant.
Right.
Things like solar,
self-sustained power. All power around is gone. So,
You know, Walmart distribution, all the big boys, Google, all these guys are all microgrid.
so that's a possibility that can be forced. Solar tax rebates, 100% funded. Those type of things. Also, piece. Getting money to build the project. And keep that all.
there's also resiliency built into the design where we locate mechanical equipment. The fact that, we're planning for emergency communication center and redundancy power that's required for all of those things. So we're thinking about that every way to be part of this building along those lines, as well as the funding. It's integral to the design process. That's great.
Any other questions or comments?
The main building is 3 stories, then the fire station next to it is 2 stories. The fleet facility in the rear is a single-story building. And the deck is 3 levels, but one of them is about half underground, so it's sort of more like a 2.5 stories.
I'm sorry, what's the building in the very back?
That is a fleet facility, so that is, we separated that building so that we could manage the price point, you know, a little bit better. It is where some vehicles are working on, vehicle evidence processing happens. There's a few staff members that are located out there in special operations. Yeah, that's part of the special operations staff that's out there.
And I know this is probably a really dumb question, so please forgive me, but you don't pay property taxes on public safety.
We don't pay property taxes and the municipal government on anything.
It has been a pleasure working with your staff. Y'all have fantastic public safety folks, municipal court folks. We've really enjoyed working. We're excited to continue that. So thank you for the opportunity to present with you today. Look forward to the next chance to be back in front of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Right, say that.
That's what I'm saying.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, colleagues. Yes, I'm just a messenger. So I think we talked about, this process a little bit before. This has not changed. I wanted to outline.
What's going on with that?
Okay,
Yeah, that's the problem.
and we can't. Of course, the first step would be, to identify the sources of funding as a facility. We, outside of that, we want to identify, be able to identify for this and, revenue sources to fund that. Obviously, this is not going to be a cash bill. This will be some form of cash that we have available, and debt. So I have a spreadsheet that is pretty much the same spreadsheet I have shown in the past. And it actually shows kind of what revenue sources or cash sources that I have identified that we might possibly be able to. The first one obviously is we have roughly $10 million in the tip that was freed up in Rochester County Second to fund Maple Street. Not really technical. We have approved or in the ordinance a possibility that we can borrow an additional $5 million tranche in the Midtown TIF. Now, obviously, we want to make sure that our revenues in the TIF were sufficient to be able to service this additional debt. I'll have a better idea of that when I get some updates on this year from Rochester County.
Wanda, sorry, can we give me about a minute?
Yeah.
Let's switch microphones on. Sorry.
So, yes, I think the ordinance included, $25 million, $20 million, issuance, and then an additional $5 million issuance at a later time. So I know there's obviously some legal things that we have to do to get that in place, but that is certainly, the wheels, the infrastructure's there for us to be able to borrow that, secured by the tax revenues from the council.
And real quickly, while he's doing that, this material to you next meeting, so don't worry about what you see today in terms of not having it again. This is a package.
And Ms. Rhonda, I know since that question came up about the second tranche. The Midtown tip is currently performing better than projected. Is that correct?
Yeah. I think a lot of it, the big thing is gonna be what goes online at the end of, 2025. Because that will be, because right now we're paying interest only, so when that principal and interest kicks in, that's gonna be the telltale. Obviously, we've seen happening in Sawmill now, we'll kind of get an update on that a little bit later. But also, I don't know exactly what the reassessment dollars are that are in the tip, and that is significant too. So we'll get an update on that, hopefully the next month.
Are they, is that taking these numbers into account, or that's not taking that into account?
So I haven't projected any excess revenues in the tip that might be available to be used. That's kind of a legal issue that I have to, look at.
We're good, Ron.
Okay.
Rhonda, would you have any idea what people like, could that be something like a 1 or 2% marginal, or like a 4 or 6% marginal, or you just really are can't really say it?
A marginal increase in the revenues. I think for this year it's more than that, because as we talked about in the reassessment discussion, any increase in value for any properties that are located in the tip, all of that increase goes to the tip.
Just for that area.
Yeah, so it could be,
Be 15, but it is.
yeah, it could be. So I will, but I will get numbers on that for you.
Thank you.
But Rhonda rightly is being very conservative on these estimates so that we don't overextend ourselves and then get caught. But obviously, that's the whole point of the TIF, is to see that growth take place. And I would not want her to get us into a position where we're going to count on every dollar we think is coming in, maybe obviously a conservative amount under what the actual amount would end up being. So.
Sure. So the third line is selling real estate. So you may have more real estate than the million building that you end up selling. You may have properties now that we can sell one property. So there may be other sales of real estate that you want to dedicate those proceeds to this project. I put 6 million in there. I think that's probably fairly conservative if you talk about several parcels maybe. But that's kind of, that's the estimate I use for that.
That's very conservative.
So cumulative outside of additional debt is identified $21 million. That leaves us 39 short. So we were looking at what is that going to cost? If we borrowed the entire 39, what would that cost us in debt service? It would cost us roughly $2.5 million. And that is based on 30 years at 5%. Obviously, interest rates change. I didn't check in the last month or two to see what municipal borrowings look like. Obviously, we're a ways away from that, but it's a barometer. If you look at both the 2.5 million and the debt service on the other tip, we're looking at 2.8 million in debt service to fund that this whole project of 60 million. Any questions on that? How do you those numbers?
That 2.8 that you're talking about, that's estimated debt service, that would be what's plugged into our annual operating budget? What would that do to that debt service line item that we have in our operating budget? What would this, if we borrowed the 39 million, what would that do to it?
So typically, the 3.25 would go in the TIF budget that would be paid out of TIF revenue.
Right, yeah.
So we'd be looking at 2.5 million. And it can come out of general fund, when I'm just gonna go over a part of it, hopefully will come out of impact fees.
Right.
Which is kind of the next section. So some of the options to fund the $2.5 million would be impact fees, general fund. Obviously, debt millage is not really something we want to do. If we enacted an old block of sales tax in the future, that could be part of it. But we would
But keep in mind, the local option sales tax is a county function. That's not something that cities can do.
Right. So
We'd have to rely on the county.
that is a possibility.
And it'd have to be
Also-
passed, right? It'd be a referendum amongst the county, everybody in the county.
Right, so also there are ways that, you know, if we want to fund things out of general fund, we may be able to find expenses in our general fund now that we can shift to either hospitality or accommodations and free up, you know, some of that existing capacity, without having to look for additional revenues and some of that. So that would be an exercise that we certainly all of us would have to go through. The vehicle that our financial advisor has, you know, suggested that we use is a installment purchase revenue bond. Installment purchase revenue bond does not count against our GO borrowing limit. It's probably a tad higher in interest rate because of that. But basically, we just pledge any revenue that we want. So, and we can change it from year to year. It's any revenue, any legally available revenue the town has. So it's a very flexible vehicle and it certainly can change. When you're looking at, you know, a 30-year issuance, things change. And so you might not want to pay that out of this fund, you might want to pay that out of another fund. So it is very flexible and seems like it would work for the town.
IPRBs are a financing tool that has been around for probably 20, maybe 20 years-ish or so. There are a number of cities and counties across the state that use IPRB financing to accomplish precisely what it is we're aimed at here. So it is something that is not available to school districts. They are the ones who actually invented the idea, if you will, but then the General Assembly prohibits school districts from doing that, but cities and counties can still avail themselves of this function. The city of Greer has used this to build their city hall facility that they've been in for a number of years. And Fairfield County has used IPRBs for a number of capital projects there. So it is, as Rhonda said, it's a very flexible financing tool that provides you, this current council, and your successors, you know, lots of options for moving forward with financing this debt. But you'll hear more about it as we mature this mix of revenues that we can use to pay the debt.
Yeah, and this is just the model that I've just started with, and obviously, like Scott said, it will evolve. The 2-year average on impact fees is right at $1.5 million. I would not say that we're going to be averaging that from the next 30 years. I have no idea. You know, as development slows, obviously those will go down. We will be getting some impact fees from the Mid-Township area as those projects get underway. So that is certainly that's a positive there. So we're still investigating some of those.
What is that 39 million at 5% needs to be to put us around 1.5 million in debt service? Do you know roughly?
About 3/4 of that, maybe.
3%.
3%.
Right? You talking about rate?
No.
So it would need to decline by probably a third.
About the 39 million would need to
If
decline
you
by.
want to take 2.5 million of debt service to $1.5 million. Yeah, rough math.
Just because this doesn't take into account like our capital improvement plan, like we're gonna need to replace fire trucks in this time, police cars and sidewalks and other kinds of projects that is not being taken into account in all of this.
Right, this is just an isolated model looking at a public safety facility at a $60 million cost. And again, that's a big assumption as well.
Yeah, the $2.5 million is just for the public safety complex. That's irrespective of any other capital needs that the town has.
Which we haven't budgeted for, correct? We don't have funding for those either, or we're gonna talk about that. we might have
other capital needs.
our capital needs, yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that some, and then we'll roll that into the FY 26 budget discussion, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's another pot of money for that, like we're
Well,
not putting it all in here.
As I understand it, you've been funding capital on a pay-go basis, pay-as-you-go basis. You
Right.
haven't been putting money aside every year into a fund from which you would then pay for capital expenses. You have not been doing that.
Right,
But we're going to
we'll
talk about that as something that we need to do. We need to start doing, yes.
So the 21 million outside of debt, what all is pulling from that number?
The 21 million, the 21 million is the 10 million from the TIF, 5 million from the second tranche of the TIF, and 6 million from Keller Real Estate.
Okay, so that's total on 21 million, we're short 39, that's where, okay.
So yes, yes.
And so we about 2.5 million each.
Right, and for illustration purposes, I'm certainly not suggesting that we institute a debt millage, but just so you would know what that equates to. Based on, our reassessment date at 1 mil is approximately 330,000. And this is the corresponding debt millage. If we were to raise this amount of money, this is what the debt millage would have to be. So,
Act 388 allows you to exceed the millage cap for debt service. So you could, above and beyond what the year-to-year debt millage cap is under Act 388, you could add 7.6, 7.7 mils just to service the debt on this. That would cover the debt just if you put on a millage. But that's not what we're necessarily proposing today, because we'll have a menu of a buffet, if you will, of revenue sources that we can pick from, which could include debt millage. But Rhonda's put that up there to give you a sense of how much the millage would be, we would have to raise in order to cover all of that 2.5 million per year, based on today's numbers.
And did I understand, did you say that if we have about 1.5 million covered in impact fees, you could expect
based on a 2-year average, I wouldn't know, I would project out.
No.
I mean, that is just so dependent on the development in the town.
So this is being provided very early in the process, before we have the federal grants applied for, before we have the contractor on board who may find some value engineering efficiencies based on their construction techniques. Before we hear back from our request of our state delegation for some level of assistance, with conservative numbers from the TIF, conservative numbers on real estate, but this is the reality of where we stand today. And that's why you're presenting that, correct?
Yes, sir.
These are the numbers if we were left by ourselves to do it.
Yeah.
But we should get.
But our intent and our work is to get other outside revenues to make those numbers better. That's our intent, and we as a staff will do that. But you need to know, as a council, that in order to move forward, this is the scenario if we were to do this thing wholly on our own. We don't intend to do that, but you need to know that this is what it would look like, so that you can best make the best decisions going forward.
One more, we do have an outstanding request to Lindsey Brown's office too, so if anybody's got any connection with them, I've been calling them, it's not dead, so we do have a full request into them as well. And also, to emphasize, I think Ron is being very conservative too on the property sales, so I think that's gonna bump some numbers up as well as we move forward.
Just for my education purposes, that the impact fees that we receive from in the TIF district, those don't have to be tied to the TIF. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. We can use those anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And
make
would
sure-
it just be the public safety impact fees?
The fire and municipal.
Or that, yeah.
Yeah,
fire.
but we only have the 3 types, and we obviously would not. Parks and Rec.
We're looking at Jamie.
You can see she tried.
She was
to
trying
hold
to,
it.
trying not to smile, but we were looking at it.
Well, that's not as bad as I would have thought. We got a good
Yes.
start here.
Yes, we do.
I think, this being what I would consider the worst case gives me great hope.
Yes.
And I believe we have a path
Yeah, I agree.
forward, but I want us to work as hard as possible on all fronts to get other money to reduce that as much as possible and eliminate it if we're lucky enough.
So assuming we have $1.5 million available out of impact fees and we're able to use all of that, then we will be looking at $1 million out of general fund or some other source.
This being the worst case gives me great hope, personally.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yep. Well, I know you're a cynic, so.
You just have to do it, Scott.
Right, yeah. We have to do it.
Yeah.
We, not me. We have.
Well, and I feel a lot more comfortable too as a path forward too. So
Yeah.
Ron has given me a lot more comfort.
Yeah.
It's become realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just that, the 5 million, the Midtown second tranche, we're not borrowing, we are borrowing that.
We would have,
It's the,
we would have to borrow it. We don't have a issuance for that $5 million yet. We have, I don't know what you would call it, authorization through the TIF ordinance, I think.
and that would, it cost us an extra 325, each year.
In debt service.
And for how long? It's
30 years, yes. And like I say, and those are approximate calculations, they're not official amortization schedule, but I think it gives us.
And keep in mind, that would be 325 that's not going, it's being spent back into the TIF district, but it just wouldn't be available for new projects, a project other than the public safety company,
Yeah.
right?
Do we have any debt service dropping off that would help offset some of this? I know you and I've talked about lease purchase agreements we have and some other debt service we've met about. And this is why I came to you and asked about that. Do we have any of that that's gonna be dropping off?
We do, one of the 5-year lease purchase will be dropping off.
That was a couple fire trucks or something, I think.
That was more police vehicles and some other municipal, needs as far as that goes. And we do have, and I think it's 10 years in, some of the other geo debt, some of our other special revenue, debt will be dropping off. I don't remember exactly what it is. But again, we're talking about 30 years. And your point kind of brings up, what I'll get to later, is that I think as a planning tool, that we need to get to a 3 to 5 year budget plan. So you can see those things. Making a decision year by year, doesn't seem to work for me. Doesn't give you a lot of comfort, because I think you can plan out further, especially when we're looking at a 30-year issuance.
Very good.
Anything else?
Great. Excellent report.
Thanks, Ms. Ron.
We will send this out. I don't have anything else, but. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, moving on to road projects.
Kick this off.
Oh,
Somewhere in Maple Street.
do we need to take a break? It's 10:10.
Yes, we do.
Does anybody?
Both of them, the first two, yeah. Too much. Stop the live stream before you.
Sounds muted.
Just
But is my computer picking up? I don't know how it's carrying her name. So is it just the slide at Maple Street and the slide that says Cedar Street and his office? Hey. Someone text Carrie's
We're good. All right, we're back on. Let's see what time it is. All right, 10:20. So that demonstrates how weak the mayor is. He's 5 minutes off of a 5-minute break, no doubt. With that, we'll go into road projects.
Real quickly, Mayor.
Oh, yeah.
Let me make sure council, y'all understand that all these things that we're talking about today, we will be bringing decisions to you potentially throughout fiscal year 26 to make related to the topics that we're talking about today. So for instance, with the public safety building and the potential for issuing debt, that is something that you are going to hear again from us in fiscal year 26 if we want to stay on the construction schedule and the move-in schedule. So any of these things that you're hearing about today, you're going to have us come to you at some point in the next 18 months potentially with a decision to make. So just keep that in mind as we go throughout the rest of the day. So yeah, road projects.
All right, I think we're kicking it off with Maple Street. Maple Street the construction started 2 years ago. I believe it was beginning of March of 2022. And there was a 2-year construction schedule, meaning that they should be completed this March. As y'all can see, there have been a lot of utility relocation issues that have not gotten done. And the contractor is behind schedule. We are working through that with the contract and extending time to it, but we expect for construction to be complete by the end of this year. Hopefully December 2025. As to date, the contractor's cost is $21 million total. To date, we have paid $7.7 million. So that's roughly 38% of the job has been paid. So they have that much more to go this year. Once all utilities get out of the way, which most are, there's minor, some, cable AT&T still needs to be relocated, but the biggest is Dominion Energy and getting those poles relocated. They plan to be done by this March.
Dominion does. Dominion should be out of the way by March.
By March, yes. The hope is by the end of February, but I'm just gonna say March to get a little buffer there. So after Dominion's out of the way, they can finish with the work. Y'all have seen now, like Parsons Road has opened up. That has greatly helped traffic out there. We have the West Richardson, Parsons and North Maple signal. That's functioning, that realignment. And then once the Dominion poles move in that section between Richardson and 78, and then of course, up towards Nexton Parkway, the contractor can really make some progress with them out of the way.
Bonnie, let's talk real quickly about the meeting we had with all the partners on this project. Blythe Development, Michael Baker International, our engineer, and HDR, our project manager. Blythe had complained about not being able to do a lot of work because the utilities were in the way. And after our meeting last week with all the principals, not only the people on the ground, but the principals of each of the partners, including the town, it was clear to me that there's been a problem with communication between the 3 entities on the ground on the project, and it was a good exercise for us to all sit down with all of them and see where some of the communication breakdowns were taking place. All of the groups, all the partners have resolved to do a better job of communicating with one another and in fact being a little more flexible on some of the asks for some accommodations occasionally that the contractor has asked for. So I think we kind of got to a stalemate in terms of personalities and communication. We've broken that log jam, and we will be meeting again next month to gauge our progress and see if we're making some headway. I think it was made very clear to everybody in the room that this is a project that needs to get done. We've been on it long enough, and we ain't getting divorced. at this point as partners. So we need to figure out how to get going and finish this thing as soon as possible. So hopefully, that is going to keep us within budget. I was very pleased to hear, I think it was from HDR, that this project right now is looking like it may come in under budget in some way. I need to get some more details on that. I will be surprised if it does, because I think we've talked about before that we were just back of the envelope figuring that we were going to be over budget by a couple of million that we would have to secure. So that was some good news in the midst of a little bit of squabbling. So just know that we're on top of it, and we'll continue to update you as we make progress.
Awesome.
And there are sidewalks going to be there all the way, right?
Yes.
All the way.
But there'll be a multi-use path on the Maple Street side, so that'll be wider, but otherwise the 5-foot sidewalks.
Maple Street sidewalks have come out looking pretty good. Initially, we were a little concerned about the sidewalks, but the people who live along that way in the Maple Street extension, they appreciate it now, because they were thinking that the front of their home would be taken by the road, but they've put in the sidewalks and they've got a good space there that they can walk it and feel good about it. So we're making progress. Thank you, Bonnie.
Great.
Any other questions on Maple Street? All right.
Okay, Central Avenue sidewalk. That project, it has been awarded. We have a pre-construction meeting tomorrow morning. That was just scheduled officially yesterday. So we're excited to get that kicked off. I expect the contractor to get started next week. Officially going to discuss in the pre-con meeting when the start date is to issue the notice to proceed. But we're thinking it will be next week, and then there's a 6-month time frame for that. And that should be done.
Completion time?
6 months, yes.
And
So
when
hopefully
did
by
you
the
say?
summer, that sidewalk will be complete.
It's kicking off, you said next week?
Yeah, the pre-construction meeting's tomorrow morning, where we'll just see what the contractor's schedule is and, to go over the project and then issue the notice to proceed, which from discussions appears like it will be next week.
Okay.
And he plans on getting started on the Parsons end, because now it'll go from where the sidewalk currently ends at Carolina and Central. So he'll start at Parsons and come to Tinley.
Can you remind us how many feet that is and how much that's costing?
It is a little over a mile. I want to say it's 1.1 miles. We have a $400,000 grant from the state, but the lowest bid was about $765,000. So we are funding that shortfall of $365,000.
Plus the CE&I portion unless the county that provides some help on that, which we're working on.
We're working on that.
Yeah, and I had a question about that, because I'm getting mixed information from county council members versus what I've heard here. So county council, I think their biggest thing is they don't want to help fund a sidewalk that possibly in the future may have to be dug up for a widening of a road. And I was under the impression that our property goes to Parsons, so therefore that wouldn't be part of their project of widening the road anyways?
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
And we've educated them on that.
Okay, so we're waiting for them to possibly put it back on their agenda to talk about.
Yes.
Already asked, always hired someone to manage your sidewalk project, or have we ever managed? It is most of them. Okay.
And it's closer to, you know, the roadway, so we felt that having an outside firm, having the CEI firm to manage the various issues that can arise with that would be very advantageous to us.
And how much is that costing us?
92,000. So we hope the county is going to pick up those costs because it will, that sidewalk goes to Parsons and they have a transportation project. Yeah. Be willing to discuss.
We haven't secured the 92,000 from county council, who they said that they would be willing to help us cover that. You all last month or month before authorized us to move forward so we could get this thing moving rather than continuing to drag our feet on projects that should have been underway by now. So, but again, we're working with our county partners to try and get that cost, that 92,000 covered.
I have a meeting scheduled with David soon, so I'd like to mention that too.
Yeah.
Just one thing, I'd like to see us do something either groundbreaking or ribbon cutting at the end that involved our local delegation and of course our county partner, our county council representatives. If they come through on the health of the project, just doing a nice ceremony, just kind of show off the project, showcase the project for one, but also the collaboration that
We've been in touch with the county. Yeah. Well, they just switched to a new guy, so they're taking, you know, there's still some learning curve. They just started last week, so I think we're gonna start hearing more about that. Well, we know that's something they want to do. We'll coordinate.
Be a good time, because this is kind of like, hey, this has sat so long.
Right.
It's like, it's for real this time.
Yeah.
We're actually gonna have a shovel.
Right.
Okay, so I'll be getting with Chris about getting that. Yeah. Okay.
That project sat on the shelf for a long time. It's exciting to advance it. It's only going to get more expensive.
Yes.
Thank you.
The next project is Cedar Street Extension, I believe. Cedar Street. Let me see where we are. We are still in the permitting and right-of-way acquisition phase. We expect permitting to last, and we've also added the signal because that is where Cedar Street will tie into Berkeley Circle and then realign there right in front of the Earth Fair Shopping Center. And originally there was no signal planned at that intersection, but we have added the signal, so that adds additional permitting. So we expect to be done February of 26, so a little over a year. Hopefully all the right-of-way acquisition will be completed by that portion as well. By that time, there is a parcel with 5 relocations on it, which will cost some additional money there. But we have intergovernmental agreements with both counties, Berkeley County and Dorchester County, for reimbursement for those expenses. There's a 9-month construction schedule for Cedar. It is less than a mile. We're going to be a roundabout, but it's fairly short. It's about 3/4 of a mile. So the estimated construction schedule is 9 months, hopefully getting started in the spring of 26. So by early 2027, that project should be done.
And remember, briefed y'all not too long ago, we had a meeting with Berkeley County and it was successful. We're working with their Director of Engineering, your former Director of Public Works, Russ Cornett, whereby Berkeley County is going to largely take over the management of that project from us. And we will essentially be a funder for them. We have a meeting with Dorchester County officials a week from this Monday to talk about a three-way IGA, intergovernmental agreement, so that we can all get on the same page and allow one entity to oversee this project. I will tell you that we did get some updated cost estimates from Michael Baker, our engineer on this project, and then we've also gotten some updated cost estimates from Dorchester County. Those two estimates don't reconcile with one another at this point, and so we need to have some more discussions internally and with those some of those folks at Dorchester County to try and square those numbers. But the Cedar Street Extension project is something that I am interested in making sure it gets done and gets done as quickly and as affordably as possible, and not have us sitting here in 3 years, 2 years, talking about another year's worth of construction like we have with Maple Street. As I said at the council meeting last week, I've not been pleased with the progress that we've made on Maple Street. And it's my hope that we won't see those kinds of complications with the Cedar Street project. So.
What's the range of the estimates?
Well, one estimate, Councilman Halter, is a little over 5 million and another is a little over 10 million. So something ain't adding up. So we gotta sit down and find out where the disconnect is, because that's too big of a disparity considering the fact that the original estimate, Bonnie, you correct me, is $5 million.
Right.
The total all-in project. So anyway.
Are we going to address enough traffic to make the juice worth the squeeze?
I will defer to my colleagues who have more knowledge about the planning for this project.
I haven't been involved in this project. I will say in our meeting with Berkeley County, Mr. Cornett is convinced that this will provide a better access and a parallel route to Main Street and prevent traffic from the Azalea Square area from having to enter onto Main Street and can get on Cedar Street. So, and he's probably looked at it the most. So, and I'm glad that they're willing to take it over on our behalf.
Well, I'm coming to the party late, but I don't think that would make my top 10 list of traffic needs. I'm not saying in any way stop the presses or stop the project, but
we're not at a spot where we could do that.
No,
intelligently.
I would like to see us spend $10 million a little more wisely on future projects.
I have a question. The roundabout that you're talking about, is that being placed, and I don't know the name of that.
There. So that entrance off.
No, we would signalize the intersection. It's just more of that.
I know how they did all, I believe they did all very right.
Berkeley would have multi-use paths, as we decided that in the town as well, that anything we work on, it's going to have multi-use paths.
I know sidewalks, we require a pedestrian, some kind of pedestrian infrastructure. I guess whether it's a sidewalk or multi-use path depends on the width of the right of way that we
Yes, that's what
have.
All right. And then, Cedar Street extension, this is like initially.
It's coming from Ninth Street.
Where it dead ends where Cedar dead ends into Ninth Street in front of the Presbyterian home.
Right.
Goes from there.
Goes to the woods.
All the way to Azalea.
Wasn't this identified, the project was identified, I'm thinking back about 2017, 2018 timeframes, this was identified as a priority project. Did we do some kind of study
I
back then? know
believe
you
so.
did. I'm
I know
putting
I
you on the
wasn't
spot.
too involved at that time,
Yeah.
but
I
it
remember
has
being-
been.
I'm pretty sure that that's, for our prior, public works director that recommended.
In our vision, vision plan in 2015, the consultant identified potential connections throughout the town with the whole map that includes lots of potential connections. This Cedar Street extension was one of them that was then given further study to identify whether it was worth it.
Right.
I guess that's, I wasn't a part of that study, that was led by Russ, but I guess that found that.
And I just want to make kind of another emphasis on the fact that our partners at Dorchester County included this project on their transportation sales tax program that was voted in last year. Our partners in Berkeley County had this as a transportation sales tax project on their referendum that was passed last year. So we have both partners helping us fund the project that we identified as a priority. So we're moving forward to get this thing executed as quickly as possible.
Out of that 10 million, what are they taking responsibility for?
That is, we just got this $10 million figure yesterday from Dorchester County. We've not had an opportunity to have any discussions with them about what that number is or what it means, because up till this point, $5 million has been the number that we've been working with. So I want to have some conversations with Dorchester County to understand. So we can't answer your question right now. We need to talk to them further about where that number came from.
So if we're paying for a portion of this, is that already projected in some of our budgets that Rhonda is talking about? In addition to like the public safety complex?
So at this point, the town has already paid towards Cedar Street. What'd you say, Bonnie?
We have 600,000.
Yeah, we've already paid 600,000 plus in engineering fees towards the Cedar Street project. It's my understanding that the largesse of the funds will come from the 2 transportation pennies in each county, and that the town, I mean, we're making contribution right now towards the project. So our portion of, in terms of potential contributions going forward, we're still working towards. But to answer your question, no, we have not incorporated any of that into our previous budgets, as I understand it. And that's something that we intend to do, and we'll talk more about that later on today.
And as we're putting in all these new lights, is there a chance to put in smart lights? Because I spend a lot of time sitting in a light when there's nobody at the other light.
That's ultimately Department of Transportation,
Yes.
DOT, but I believe they are looking at the software, the adaptive.
Sounds like it should be.
They have funding for Main Street to 176 for improving the adaptive and coordinated signal system along Main Street.
And that includes, if we're putting in a new signal, mast arms and underground, everything else underground. And then one more question, Cedar Street right now, do we have a sidewalk or a multi-use path all the way down to 78? I believe we do.
There is a sidewalk.
But there is a sidewalk, okay. So we would tie into that, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, any other questions on Cedar Street? Okay, moving on.
our next one, Lenny?
Main Street Resiliency Project.
Main Street.
I can almost feel it. Maybe not.
What, we're not gonna
Yeah.
talk about Lee Street?
It is.
Oh,
So as you know, we hired ICE engineering firm to lead this project. The exciting part I think about hiring those guys is the team that they brought. They're bringing in Woods and Partner, which is a world-class landscaping firm. So I think that's very important in our downtown area to make sure we're enhancing that area as we make these improvements. So I'm excited about having them on board. But just as exciting about their team is that they've got a firm that is dedicated to utility relocation, totally dedicated to it. And they have a full-time staff person dedicated to relocation of utilities. So I'm excited about that aspect. This project is going to impact a lot of business owners. It's going to impact a lot of folks downtown. So we're going to be working with Chris to make sure we have a very good public information platform on our website, and maybe set up some texting opportunities to get the word out when there's road closures, driveway closures, and the like during the construction process and planning process. Another important aspect about this project is that we're working closely with Dorchester County. Our project boundaries are from the railroad tracks up to 500 North Main Street intersection where the government building is located. Their project is going to be on the other side of the railroad tracks up to, right now, they've expanded the boundaries up to the 5 Point area. Initially, it was just past the high school, but they have expanded it if their budget allows. Their project is somewhat different from ours. It's not going to be as heavily landscaped and as big pedestrian bike sidewalks as our planning to be. But they've also hired ICE as well. So we're going to be totally coordination with them. And I will tell you, Russ and I have met with Dorchester County in the past. Our feelings are that the town will handle the planning and design phase of this project and hopefully handle over the construction process to Dorchester County. That's kind of the plan moving forward. So as part of this project with ICE, we've basically broken down the project into 3 phases. That's the preliminary planning phase that we're just kicking off now, the design phase, and then the construction phase. And so we'll be separate contracts for each phase and separate funding. So just to give you a quick update, we had our kickoff meeting 1st of January for this project for the planning and design phase. Just to give you an idea of what that entails, it's going to include field surveying, traffic analysis, drainage analysis, utility coordination, street lighting and traffic signal mass arms, landscaping and beautification, and the concept plans. During this planning phase scope, this is not really for you guys, but I met with the Bike and Pedestrian Committee yesterday to give them an update on this project. So it's kind of tailored towards them, but for Tiffany and I know other folks, this is a high priority. I want to kind of highlight that as well. So planning phase includes data collection, environmental investigation, storm drainage analysis, traffic analysis, street lighting, utility coordination, landscaping and beautification, easement, right-of-way, public meeting, and public information strategies. Bike and pedestrian in particular, convert 5 feet offset sidewalk to 12-foot multi-use pathway if practical. Improve crosswalks at intersections and signals. Plan for an on-site parallel parking if acceptable as SCDOT and on-site bike lanes. Ensure landscaping beautification does not obscure sight lines between bike and pedestrians and vehicles. So again, this is the first phase. We were a couple months behind where I wanted to start. We were waiting on Dorchester County for coordination, but we were kind of ahead of them. Our initial kickoff was supposed to be in November, got pushed to December. So this first phase is targeted to be completed at the end of June of this year. And then we'll go into phase 2 again of that planning design phase and move forward with the project as well. The project has been funded up to, I always get this messed up, 5.5 million, correct?
That's correct.
Is what we have in the bank currently for this project. We're hoping to get additional fund. The state said, you know, we're allocated 12 million over a 4-year period. So hopefully that's going to play out. But right now we're at $5.5 million funding for this project. So.
Is there any chance Dorchester County has revived the roundabout at 5 Points?
I'm sure they're going to be investigating that as part of the project.
Is that
whether they have the funding is going to be the question.
That'd be huge.
Yes. I know Russ brought that up as well when we met with them in particular.
So I would want to emphasize again, 5.5 million has been set aside by the General Assembly, by our delegation. Appreciate them doing that, and we are hopeful that they can come through with the additional 6.5 million of the 12 million pledge that they made. But that's obviously going to depend on the state's budget and our delegation's success in securing those funds. So we've got enough to do this planning phase, but beyond that, we're still working to try and secure the funds to push the project forward.
Any other questions on Main Street resiliency? All right, next project. Asset management update.
All right, I was asked to speak today on asset management. I'm Sean Gibbons. I'm the IT coordinator for public safety. And, and so the town administrator had wanted us to have a more unified platform to keep up with asset management.
Hold on one second, Sean. Let me mention this real quick before you get started. Y'all have mentioned to me, I think in private and in public, that we as a town need to, do we have a way to identify what our capital needs are, what our asset needs are for everything that we do, from buildings to rolling stock to equipment? And so in beginning to investigate potential solutions that we could use as a town to get a better handle on our asset management, I started looking into solutions and then began having conversations with the leadership staff, and come to find out we have a solution that we're already using. Here's the problem though. As I've found, and please understand that this is no knock against anybody in this room. But as I have found throughout my couple of months here, we have been as a town siloed departmentally, so that all of our departments, not all of them, but many of our departments have been acting and operating independent of one another, and unknowing of what the other is doing with regard to things and solutions that we can all share. And so in having conversations, I discovered that the police department is using a solution to manage its fleet and other assets, and said, okay, we've already got this in hand. So what I wanted Sean to come and talk to you about is the solution that we are already using, and what our plan, how we could roll this out to the rest of the town to use to each of the departments at a very nominal cost, so that we can get a better handle on how to manage our assets for planning purposes, for capital planning purposes, that we'll talk about more later. So sorry to interrupt you, Sean, but I wanted to just kind of introduce that way now. So dive into Jira.
All right, so Jira is, it does have an asset management solution portion to it, but what it is totally is a service management, project management type software that has asset management involved in it. And the reason why we use it is with all the assets that we have at the police department and the fire department, because we use it for both, with the vehicles, the technical equipment, the body cameras, everything. We had to have some way to keep track of all that equipment and who has it and what's the serviceability of that equipment. So we came up with Jira, and what Jira is for example, we use it for IT, for people to put in help tickets to help with their various problems that they have with technical devices. So those tickets, when they're put in, they are related to a certain asset. So if they have a problem with a computer, or we're fixing something has a a router or switch or whatever kind of infrastructure that we have, it's linked to that asset. So we have a history, a maintenance history, any kind of history of who was assigned to, or what was done with that asset all throughout its lifespan. So we'll take a computer the day we purchased it, that's put in there, the cost, all these different metric points that we can track that asset through its whole life cycle. Then we know, like when it comes down to refreshes, we know what computers need to be refreshed, and we can put them on a cycle or a schedule, and then we can budget out, okay, we know that we're going to need this much this year to recycle the computers to keep them refreshed every 4 to 5 years. So we do that with the computers, we do that with the vehicles. We also we track, we do some light HR functionality with it as well. We have each one of the employees in there as an asset, and we track them and where they are, if we're onboarding, offboarding, modifying their employment, it's all in there. And we have the ability to, each person that needs to have their hands in that process has access to it. There's a ticket assigned, they can go through their portion, there's checklists of what needs to be done for that particular onboarding or offboarding. And so it's more than just asset management, but the asset management is a big part of what you guys were looking for. Jira is completely customizable to whatever need of that department. It's simple or as complex as you need it to be. There's also automations that once we identify routine tasks, that we can start having the computers do that to automate some of the tasks that can be done. For example, we use it for training. The employees can request training classes that they want to go to. And each one of those training classes is a ticket that goes in, and it has to be approved by their supervisor. So the supervisor gets aware of it, they approve it, it goes on to the next person in the chain, they approve it, it goes to training, they fund it, or if it's free, they go, and it's all scheduled, and there is an accountability to that ticket. It's not just sending an email, hey, can I do this? And sometimes emails get lost, they get forgotten about. It's all in a queue of whoever's working that particular task gets done. But back to the actual assets, you can just set it up where you're just putting your assets into that database and you just maintain what you have there, as simple as that. Or it could go as more involved as something like vehicle maintenance, where all of the vehicles are in, every vehicle that the town owns is in that database. And the mechanics at the shop would be able to, if any employee would be able to go in, schedule their maintenance on their vehicle, or preventive maintenance on their vehicle, schedule the time they want to come in. We can get all that set up with vehicle maintenance, and each one of those maintenance, anything that's done to that car is tracked with that vehicle. So you can do oil changes. We had to replace this, we had to replace that. Anything, they can look at a history of what was done to that vehicle. And when that vehicle, the mileage, we could send out notices to everyone to like for their PMs. I know that the police department, we do PM sheets on all our vehicles. They kind of give an update on any damages or anything that's wrong with the vehicle, update the mileages. And if you do that, then we can send out notices, hey, you're up for an oil change. You need to go ahead and schedule your appointment, things like that. So it can get as involved or as simple as you want it to be. Like when I say it's customizable, it doesn't come out of the box saying where this is an HR program, this is an IT program, or vehicle maintenance. You make it to what you need it to be. You put what fields in there you want to track, what data points you want to track about each vehicle. And there's also integrations with other software that you can do to make that job even easier. So those are just kind of the things that we use it for. It's been extremely helpful for us, especially in the HR side of it. And now it's the training requests and material requests, we do those too, have become much more streamlined, where if somebody puts something in, it gets to where it needs to go, the supervisors get it, it's not on a piece of paper that floats around and gets lost. It's tracked and people are accountable to that.
So, and the cost for this thing is about $600 a year for each seat?
No,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's $56 per user per month.
Okay.
Now that's not every employee in the town would have to be a user.
Right.
These are just people that would be entering in the information, working the tickets like a mechanic that would be working each one of those tickets on the cars. Not every employee of the town would have to be that. So the total cost is kind of depending on each department of what their needs are. If they need, how many users that they need, but other than that, everybody else is technically a customer. And they can use it to go to the portal to request services and things of that sort.
And it's all cloud-based, so there's no hardware or software that we need. We just need a connection to the interwebs.
That's right. As long as the Russians say we can have it, we can have it.
Does that track insurance, like on the say on the vehicle or lawnmowers or whatever? Can you put in the insurance policy for each one, and then when it's sold, remove the policy, and it shows that it was taken out of the system? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it's garbage in, garbage out. Whatever you put in there, you can use to track. So for instance, we'll use it for subscriptions or maintenance agreements, and we'll tie those maintenance agreements to certain assets. And when those come up for renewal, we can set it to where it creates a ticket in there. Hey, you need to get this renewed, and you can go through and contact your vendor and get the renewals done. And we know
all expenses are tracked in there.
it can, it's not financial software, it's more for managing those areas. So you can put in there, you know, let's say the depreciation of a vehicle, and then you can set up automations that would be on a schedule to depreciate the vehicle over a certain amount of time each year, or over a certain percentage each year, and it'll update that. It's really it's limitless of what you can do, but it's not like an overall like financial software. It's not for something like that, but.
So if the streets department, say, was getting maintenance on a piece of equipment pretty often, it might track the work order, I'm understanding.
Correct.
But it wouldn't track the expense of that ongoing maintenance to determine at what level should we.
Yeah, you could do that, yes. You could do that. You could, if they were, it just depends, like I said, as complex as you want to get. If they want to put in their parts that they're actually putting in, the prices, then it could add that up and put that towards that work order for that vehicle. So we know that we put this much into this vehicle, repairing it over its lifespan.
So long as the user is putting in good information, then if they track what we want it to, including you could essentially graph out if a track hoe is going to cost us $10,000 a year it costs us $10,000 a year, 1 year to maintenance for some reason. You know, at what point do we decide that we need another track hoe? You could take that $10,000 against its value or depreciate it in some way. It's really, I guess the point of this discussion is to let you know that you've told us that this is something that we need to investigate. We have this tool, and it's our intent to roll this out to all the departments so that they can take advantage of it for planning purposes, tracking of those expenses, tracking of that maintenance record, so that we can better help you plan for your capital needs going forward.
So do we need a motion to begin implementation of this?
Nope. We already have it. We're using it. I wanted y'all to know that this is something that we are doing to push forward your agenda. And we're going to roll this out to all the departments.
And then each department will determine, the department heads will determine who will be responsible
Correct.
for inputting this.
Correct.
So the last thing is everything in here can be petitioned between departments, so you don't have everybody into the pot or whatever, with the exception of something like vehicles, because they're all owned by the town. It wouldn't make much sense to have the same vehicle in there twice for each one, so vehicle maintenance or whatever. So we can make that work. But you know, like parks and playgrounds wouldn't have to worry about police body cameras. You know, they have their own stuff that they would track. So we can petition off like that to where everybody has their own section.
Would this be a time where, like, I think Rhonda's team right now is responsible for all the insurance policies and everything. So say if Amy's department is putting in equipment, would then Rhonda's office need to go in and put in, say, the insurance policies, or would Amy need to do that? Or would they work together doing that, or is that something y'all will figure out?
We would figure out the logistics of that, yeah.
As far as that goes, I mean, that's pretty much the gist of that. It's just more, I guess what I wanted to say was, it's more than just asset management. There's other things to help streamline and make it more, productive.
Incredible.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah.
We need that.
Well done.
Yeah.
All right. Capital Fund.
Oh, to piggyback off of Sean, thank you very much. I envision, a workflow, that would actually, make sure we got it added to insurance and some of that. Now, I will say that, the system is here, and just like, Scott said, garbage in, garbage out. We would want to integrate probably with our maintenance department with fuel and maintenance and what that looks like, you know, to properly manage, our capital assets. It's not an exact science, you know, where is the maximum resale value and where is when you start spending more than it's actually worth on those pieces of equipment. I can't tell you that.
And this should help do that. Well, that'd be awesome.
I don't know if it's gonna be the decision maker, but hopefully it will provide some data that somebody who's knowledgeable can actually use, to do that. So we've been talking about capital since I got here. We used ARPA to fund some capital. We, did lease purchase to fund some capital. But we haven't really established a normal capital funding mechanism. This policy is certainly, you know, something that we need to start with. The first step is identifying a person or department that's going to be in charge of this and what it looks like. Obviously, you know, each department is going to design what they need. They're going to probably need some help and looking and see what that looks like. We may want to include some measures, and I would assume that these would be general requirements of, for replacement, just like the cost that's there. We want to provide this policy for updates to our 5-year capital needs annually. We have a CIP. It's the primary purpose of our CIP is to also assist in our impact fee study. But I think that we need to have, in addition to that, we need to have a living document that we actually use as a budget planning tool each year. And then we look in that 3 to 5 year range to see what we need.
And Rhonda, correct me if I'm wrong, but the impact fee, the CIP related to the impact fee is not nearly broad enough to incorporate all of the needs that the town has from a capital standpoint, correct?
That's correct.
As you're gonna hear later on today when the department heads start talking. So despite the fact that we have a CIP, a capital improvement plan already, it's only related to the impact fee to fulfill that requirement so that we can continue to levy the impact fees. But it's not big enough. It's not encompassing enough to all the things that we need. So that's what we're talking about here, is a broader document to help guide your planning for the future.
And really only a small portion of what we need is actually eligible for impact fee use
Right.
anyhow. And on that CIP, we do have things like general fund. We do have other sources that we identify to fund some of that. But I think we just need to use it more, not put it on the shelf, and then continually update it, because our needs change. And I'm sure that in 5 years we'll be talking about something completely different. Identifying a funding mechanism. We all want this. Where's the money going to come from? Yeah, that's generally what discussions are. So we may need to have some, I think the policy should include, you know, some identified sources. It can certainly be flexible. It can be kind of on year to year, but I think we probably would want to find some kind of stable source that you can use from year to year. And obviously, you're gonna hear this a lot from me, a 3 to 5 year budget. We can't fund capital on an annual basis here. We need to look at it. If we get into a lease purchase, say for a fire truck, there's nothing wrong with that, but we just need to know what that looks like. There's been some talk, I believe in council before, about taking the salvage value, the sales of equipment that we are abandoning or selling and putting it in a capital fund. And I think that's a great thing to do. So remember though that right now I've got, there's not a lot of money, but I do have that in the general fund budget, so if you were to do that, that would come out of the general fund budget. And then we would actually, we would put this in a separate fund. We would establish a separate fund capital. We would put the funding there and we would purchase the assets out of that capital fund. I might suggest that one of the things we might be able to look at, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, is maybe we look at a surplus from our previous year and designate some of that as what we use for a capital fund. Hopefully, I'm conservative, I don't have a trust fund or a rich uncle, and that's just the way I'm built. So hopefully, I'd rather stand up here in front of you and say we're gonna max that surplus than have a different scenario.
So we are looking at having a line item in this year's budget to start that.
We can do that, yes, sir.
Let's start something.
We'll see how the math falls out.
Well, ideally, I think what we would do is bring to you a capital fund concept with a contribution into it to start building. And then at your discretion, put expenses that could be funded by that. And if that is something that this council is interested in us pursuing, which we would strongly encourage you to do, we will bring a capital fund concept to you along with some other funds that we intend to put in front of you this year for fiscal year 26 that you've not done previously. But we can talk more in detail about that as we get into the budget process starting next month.
Do we need a motion or any action for that to go ahead and initiate that process? I think we have talked about it a great deal, even at last year's budgeting process. And if we are anticipating having some excess revenue, it would be great to have this fund in place and plan kind of started so that we know where it goes at the end of this fiscal year.
Well, Mayor, let me suggest that if you would allow, we will bring these things to you and then y'all decide from that menu of options what you want to proceed forward with, right? Is that fair?
Good, perfect.
With a little more meat on the bones than just this concept at this point.
I know one thing we've kind of talked about is, you know, we still look at Somerville like the town of Somerville, but we really are like a city that the size that we are. One of the things that it says up there, you know, identifying the person or department to manage this process. And one thing that's always kind of surprised me about Somerville long before I ran for this position is we didn't have in Somerville, even Goose Creek has it, we don't have any kind of small business enterprise or minority or woman-owned, any kind of procurement process or procedure in this town. And maybe this is an opportunity for us to hire someone for that procurement purchasing process that can manage this and also implement our own minority procurement process. Because I do know that there are large enterprises looking to do business with cities. They do look for that as well. That's pretty important to them. And that's not something that we have in this town, city. So that might be something to think about, maybe having a person.
I guess that could be in the menu of options.
Well, I'll say that Rhonda's staff is sort of managing purchasing right now, though not, I wouldn't say in an official named capacity. Sandy is doing that in a large measure. That's part of what she's doing. But in terms of her reach across all the departments, there is some coordination, but probably not as much as I would like to see. But of course, Sandy's also doing a lot of other things in the finance office. I don't disagree that we probably need a dedicated person for purchasing. Rhonda and I have talked about that before, somebody who can dedicate more time to that and expertise to that, who could also do some other things like managing capital and asset management. So certainly that's something that we have talked about and could put in front of you. come budget time.
So if somebody, I'm sorry.
No, good.
If somebody was reaching out to our town and they said they want to speak to the procurement officer, who is that person in our town?
That would be me officially.
Yeah, that, we had a person in the town, on town staff years ago, and that became as through doing more with less, that became a 2-half position, and then a 3-half position. I believe they're probably worth 5 or 6 halves now. But, which, in some instances, that's not a bad thing, but, one thing I would like to add to this, to our discussion of capital, fund needs in the future is also goes along with the 3 to 5 year budgets is projecting out personnel, expansions and things like that, just so we, that kind of paints a whole picture, gives a complete picture of what our departments will look like in 3 to 5 years. It helps us kind of help me to make those decisions. I wrote a few of these plans and I always included that aspect. It didn't get included in the CIP because of course you can't use impact fees to fund personnel, but that's just something we ought to be looking at as well. Because I know all of our department, we're talking about a purchasing agent now, so our departments need to grow. It's no question about it. But knowing what that growth looks like would be beneficial to everyone. Yeah, I agree.
That's correct. We, I can't remember exactly what language is in our purchase ordinance, but I know that it did have, a preference for small businesses and local businesses. I am very much a proponent of if we're going out to eat or at this conference center, it's in the town of Somerville, okay? I wouldn't suggest we go to the municipality to hold one of these events or to hold any kind of function, where we're all together. I know for some of our janitorial supplies, we still, there's just a small company that supplies, and we haven't had any problems with them, and we certainly still try to support that business. So we're gonna always try to do that, when possible. Obviously, we have to be conscious of cost, but I think that's certainly a priority for me and what I speak about routinely.
Yeah. I mean, right now in our section 2-324 competitive bidding, item 2, it doesn't mention any kind of set aside or any special exceptions for any of those services. But I'll send out an email with some examples of what City of Goose Creek, Hanahan, North Charleston, Charleston, and Mount Pleasant have, and we can just look at it.
Okay, and that'd be great.
It's the council's policy.
Yeah.
You want to change it, change it.
I think, and I wanted to say, I think we have a council now that can discuss things in a way that we can move a lot of this forward. And I think we have a council to vote for the right thing, which will not always be the popular thing.
So we will bring to you along with this and some other budgeting tools in terms of funds that we have identified, and we'll bring that to you at our first budget meeting next month. And we'll start talking in more detail about those things, including this capital fund.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we were, the mayor, you said we weren't gonna look back, but we're gonna look back, and we're gonna be in the present, and we're gonna be in the future. Anyway, I want to give everybody a little update on FY24. I expect to have the audit, county gonna have an audit by the end of the month. And I don't expect a whole lot of difference in what we presented. I wanted to remind you that, in June, when July, when I presented the June report, we were roughly, I think our revenue was 3.5 over what our budget was, something like that. We're going in the year with a surplus of around 4.3 million, I think. And that is all.
Make sure everybody understands that's fiscal year 24
Yes.
that ended June 30 of last year. We're not talking about this current fiscal year.
That's correct. So that is essentially all because of business licenses. Where our year hits at June 30th, and I know there was a really good reason for changing our year to June 30th. I know maybe one, but anyway, a lot of headaches sometimes. I get about $10 million, which is roughly 25% of our budget dollars in the last 2 weeks of the year. So if I were really aggressive on those numbers, the spending plan is done by then. I can't adjust anything. If we miss the mark on those particular categories, then I would be presenting a picture to y'all that I wouldn't really want to present. So I would rather take the approach of, I can probably get a little more aggressive because I can see the trends and I'm more comfortable with the numbers. But I would rather take an approach on, let's get it in our hand and then let's spend it. You know, maybe that is where your capital funding comes from, or maybe we have another need that we can use that for. So I wanted just to highlight the 4 major categories: property taxes, business licenses, franchise fees, and local option sales tax. I'm sorry. Property taxes have a consistent increase. They, thanks to our partners at Dorchester County, I have some good estimates to go by. Roughly, I think I was within like 7%, I believe, of FY24 on property taxes.
Everybody, if you can't see it, the blue bars on the far left of each of those is 2020. The magenta bar is 2024 actual. So
yeah,
those are the revenues from left to right, from 2020 to 2024.
And 2021 was a short year, but most of the property taxes came in from January to June, so there's not a lot of a drop off with that short year as far as that. You can see our 24 budget is in green, our 25 budget is in black for property taxes. Licenses is made up of our regular business license from our businesses in town, our contractor business licenses, and business licenses from insurance companies within the state. That is a broker revenue stream that is managed by MASC. That revenue comes in pretty much the last week of June, along with Dominion's franchise fee. Like I say, I'm looking at $10 million the last 2 weeks of June. So those can vary. This particular year, 24, we had a more significant increase than what we have had in past years. But overall, certainly the insurance revenue increases a lot. Franchise fees are fairly stable. I think right after Dominion took over SC&G, maybe they reduced rates. They had a little bit of a dip, but it seems to be climbing at a very modest rate, but it does seem to be climbing. Local option sales tax, that's obviously Berkeley and Charleston County, the lion's share in Berkeley County. That seems to be rising too. So there may be some additional revenue there to be captured. Any questions about that part?
Do we have a slide similar to this that shows what we projected versus actual to be able to tell these years what kind of percentages we?
I can get all that data that I used to compare this. The lines are our projections. That's our budget. Okay, the bars are actual.
Right. I was just thinking year over year since 2020, but that's okay.
One thing I'll say about the licenses, the second category of revenues there, specifically the tax collection programs that the municipal association operates on our behalf, those revenues have been the insurance anyway has been steadily rising over the years, simply because of the growth that's taken place in the state and the increase in premiums on insurance premiums. Increases in insurance premiums obviously yields more revenue and to the insurance companies who then pay that tax back to the cities and towns across the state. So I feel very good about those numbers continuing to go up. The local business license tax has been growing as well, somewhat, but it's not, that's going to depend on our local growth of our businesses. So we feel like we're going to have a better picture, a more reliable picture of those revenues to put in front of you for this fiscal year. the new fiscal year.
And I agree. I feel like for FY '25, I think our property taxes will be even closer to the estimate, primarily because of reassessment and all the data that we actually use when we were preparing the budget. Licenses, I expect that we'll still be under, to some degree on business licenses, so we should have a little bit of excess revenue there. And probably with local option sales tax too, because I do think that Berkeley County is growing, and that's where that revenue comes as well. So this is just capturing the historical for each of those revenue categories and where our budget is this year in respect to those.
Do you think if there was a local option sales tax for Dorchester County, that property tax would come down some and local option sales tax would go up some, or it would still steadily climb? Everything would still steadily climb, even though the property owners get a percentage of that back.
So what happens is the property tax itself would not decline, but what the taxpayer owes would. What we actually would do is on your tax bill, you have the same tax, but then we would rebate 71% or something similar to that back to each individual taxpayer. So you have your regular tax, any fees you have, less they call it a sales tax credit. So what the taxpayer writes a check for would definitely decline. Everything else remaining the same, millage, value, everything, they would pay less. You can look up some tax bills in Berkeley County and you can see how that works. So that's what I do. I take the Berkeley County local option sales tax that we receive and I get a ratio and I send that back to Berkeley County and they put that credit on the bill.
Yeah, I've noticed my tax bills have been on there in Berkeley County. I was just wondering how it would affect our numbers, but I get it.
So it basically would be, it would be a distribution between.
So I think I understand the question.
Yeah.
Our property tax revenue, the magenta bar would fall slightly, but the local option sales tax would make up for that fall plus some.
That's what I was asking,
Right.
and that's what I figured.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. It would be a net positive for our general fund revenues if Dorchester County had a local option sales tax.
Accounting wise, it might have to show up a little bit differently in our financials, but that is exactly what would happen. It would just be a distribution from one category to another.
Do you, in your opinion, do you feel like there is a year that we will hit at any point soon, hopefully, or that we will be able to roll back the millage based on all your projections and budgets, or you haven't been able to get there yet?
I'm not there yet. I think that's part of the 3 to 5 year budget projection is looking to see what our needs are and then what our revenue is. That would require some projections, which I would probably use minus projections about the assessment value growth. Got the expert at the back of the room, he can always set that.
Are you asking if there would be an opportunity to cut the town's property tax rate? Is that your question? I believe you're going to see this afternoon that
At any point, 3 years, 5 years,
I would suggest that's something that if you had the opportunity, it's going to be years down the road after you have hopefully funded some of the things that you're going to see that are needs for the town this afternoon.
So a simple math explanation might be if we only expect our assessments to grow 2, 3, 4% a year. What is our biggest expense for the town is employees. If you gave the employees more than 2, 3, 4%, then we need more revenue to fund that. Again, property taxes is only a piece of it. It's about a third of our revenue sources. So there are other revenue sources there, but just in simple math.
And that appears to be growing more than 2 to 3%.
Well, yes, it has vehicles in there. I don't know exactly what it is.
One of the things we talked about before when we raised the taxes is try to find something that we can keep stable for a while, because our taxes have always been a political ball. So it goes down, then it goes up, and then it goes down, and we get so far behind, it goes back up, and we're still not paying our employees what we should do. We're behind everybody else.
Okay, so I wanted to break down business licenses a little bit. You know, I try to kind of get behind the numbers, look at the data, see what it looks like. So hopefully it makes a little more sense. Business licenses, and that's just a traditional business in town. You know, it's growing, but it's pretty stable, a small amount. You look at the contractor business licenses, it's dependent on how many projects are going on in town, what the value of those projects are. So when you know, this is a fairly wide range. So that's pretty difficult to project from year to year to see what that looks like. MASC insurance business licenses, this is a huge growth in 2024. I don't know, sometimes this is timing, because again, where our year ends almost right in the middle of the business license cycle. So we continually get payments in July and August. Some of those are pretty back to the year end, and some of them are not. So looking at this, looking at more some averages, looking at some trends, getting some insight from MASC, I think will get us closer. But I don't want to go all the way to the end, just for fear of, I don't want to miss that mark by too much and not know it till late in the game. Any questions about that? You can see how projecting this particular line item can be kind of difficult. We got in-town contractors, out-of-town contractors. If we have, I think we had a big road project in town. Those contractors pay business licenses to us. That can be huge. I looked at our top 5 business license payers, and cumulative, they only account for about $500,000. So we aren't heavily dependent on any one industry or any one taxpayer. So that's good. That means the volatility is less. Anything else? We've got some, I think this last year, due to the data breach, the storm, we have some expenses that you guys approved. I think there was a personnel position that it was all approved. What we'll probably do is at the end of the fiscal year, after the FY26 budget is done, we may amend the budget just to incorporate all of those things to get it for it to be more official.
I mean, the current budget, the fiscal year 25 budget.
Yes,
Yep.
the 25-year budget. We will probably amend that just to make sure all of those changes get incorporated properly. We can do that after the year is actually ended, and that way we won't kind of confuse the situation between for us and for our citizens. On them. Any other questions? Yeah. I wanted to update you on vacation payouts. Last year, one of the incentives that you want to put into place is that we would pay anyone who had accumulated over 240 hours, instead of everybody trying to burn their hours at the end of the year. If they had some carryover, we would pay for that. Roughly, it costs the town approximately $90,000 to do that. I wanted some input from department heads, and everybody that responded to me, I think had a positive outcome of that. Honestly, I would want to encourage somebody to not take vacation the whole year just to get this. I don't think that's healthy. So obviously, it'll be up to department heads and supervisors to make sure that everybody's taking care of themselves. But I do think there was probably more staff around that might minimize overtime and do any particular dive in or analysis for that. But if you're down on staff, then I think that the chances of having overtime is a lot higher. So, so anyway, I think that was a positive, positive benefit.
Rhonda, those were mostly probably more senior tenured positions, tenured people. Yeah.
Yes. Retiree payouts. This has not been a budgeted expenditure. Generally, I think it was thought of as we had vacancies, so it could be absorbed. This year, we had 3 long-term employees that retired in this fiscal year, FY25. So that may affect, if you're getting close to being fully staffed, that's going to affect the budget numbers. So I would like to, this next year, I would like to maybe pull the departments, and you're not going to know everybody, but you might have an idea of somebody who's going to retire, and maybe kind of build that in a little bit, just to give us a little bit of cushion.
Has there been any study by your department to see what other municipalities are doing the vacation payouts like that? Because I think all those things should be taken into account when we're looking at our compensation that we pay our employees.
No, absolutely. I haven't looked to see. I don't know what the terms were, but I know Dorchester County was also doing the same thing. But I believe their payout date was going to be March, later on in the year, after cash flow from taxes coming in. I don't know what the other justifications were on that, but I have not looked to see what other municipalities. This was a discussion last year that came out of employee retention and what could we offer our employees that would be meaningful.
There are a number of jurisdictions across the state that do this and other retention efforts. So it's not an uncommon thing for a city or a county to do.
But I do think it should be an annual acknowledgement, either in the budget or by council or something, employee that says that, yes, you want to go ahead and do it again. I don't think it should be just a light blank checks, and those make me a little nervous.
I do think when we're comparing with other places, we should compare with municipalities and not counties. And counties always have a lot more money than municipalities do across the board. And I think we should be comparing what we do with municipalities rather than counties.
I'll get with HR, and I'm sure we can find out what some other municipalities.
Well, I can agree with you, but our people are leaving to go to counties to get more and better. So we are in competition with them, even if we don't want to look at it.
I'm
going to start this discussion, and Scott, Chris, please jump in, but, health insurance next to employee salaries are our second big expense, and very frustrating. It feels like we have zero control over it. So we've entertained, maybe switching brokers and see if there's someone who can diagnose our problems. We have a very high claims percentage, which drives our claims up. And we want to be able to give our employees good coverage, but we need to be able to manage the cost. Again, that's another one of those, when you start looking at that ticking up, 7, 8, 10%, maybe even more each year, that's tough. And we give our employees a very good benefit by paying 100% of employee coverage and for a portion of family coverage.
How much is that, the family coverage?
82%.
82%, the other 3 levels.
Yeah. So, I certainly would encourage, and I think all the department heads that, I've heard, they certainly make sure their employees know what a sweet deal that is, that we provide. But I think that we really need to make strides and kind of manage that better. We won't be able to reduce the premiums, but hopefully we can keep them from going up as fast. There may be things like having an on-site clinic in the future, being self-insured. There's some benefits there if we reach a certain size. But I think all those things we need expert advice on. And that is not any of those things are really not a short-term solution, it's basically a long-term, but we would really like to kind of start moving in that direction, get some advice there.
I want to make sure everybody understands what we're trying to do here and in having this conversation. Understand that if we're paying $10 million a year right now for health insurance coverage for employees, we are not going to be able to cut that number below $10 million. Okay. That is not going to happen and continue to provide the same benefit. Okay. So if we want to provide the same benefit, what we're trying to do, our aim is to try and reduce the amount of the increase that we will have to pay from year to year. So we're paying 10, and these are not real numbers. I'm just giving you numbers. So if we're paying $10 million a year for health insurance premiums, and our potential increase is going to be another $5 million, then, and I'm not saying that's what it's going to be, but let's say for illustration, it's going to be $5 million. What we're trying to do is keep that $5 million from either getting bigger or get below $5 million. But we're going to pay more than $10 million just because of the increases in insurance premiums for everybody, not just us, but for everybody. So our goal is to minimize the increase in the premiums that we are paying on behalf of employees and continue to provide them with the coverage that they have. Okay. So dissuade yourself of the notion that unless you're going to cut the benefit, that's the only way that you could potentially cut the bottom line number that we have right now. So our goal is to limit the amount of the increase, because everybody's going to get hit with 5 to 10% health insurance premium increases every year, no matter what they do, no matter how good their history is, how good their claims experience is. They're going to get hit with that because that's just the industry. The other part that we're going to try to accomplish, and Chris is going to talk about this with regard to one of the brokers that we talked to, the other part that we can control is our claims experience. And so that's where we need to do a better job of looking at how our employees and their dependents, and we're covering about 800 lives right now, 400 some odd employees and their dependents. So we're covering about 800 lives. So the part that we can better control is our claims experience, helping them make the right choices with regard to their care, going to the right providers, and helping to direct them to services and providers that can maximize the benefit to them and to the town. So keep in mind, when we're talking about health insurance, that is our goal as a staff, because we are not going to be able to, again, cut the bottom line dollar unless you as a body decide to cut the benefit. That's the only way, potentially, and I'm not saying you couldn't get there. That's the only way you could cut the bottom line. So with that as the sort of the baseline where we are, Chris, talk about our discussions with one of the brokers that can help us with this.
Yeah, so without going into too much detail, I'll just tell you that both Rhonda and Scott touched on, but those certain things we can do, especially within the realm of self-funded plans. That's where the biggest opportunity is, setting up clinics, allowing you to the advantages that come with that, and you have to work your way to that. But the biggest advantages are, Scott touched on it a little bit as far as directed care, having people go to certain facilities that are, the quality is top notch, but this procedure or this operation at those facilities might cost half as much or only 2/3 of going to this facility and this facility type of thing. So that's called directed care. And that can have a huge impact. Another, again, without going into too much detail here in this forum, but there are opportunities with that self-funded plan with regard to prescription drugs, which is another huge impact. And us being able to get more discounts or us reap the benefits of controlling that.
obtaining those and providing those on a much less expensive process from that standpoint. So those amounts are, the potential is huge from a savings standpoint. So and also one other is being able to coach and direct within that clinic environment, better to control and educate in a trusted situation, your employees to live better, to live healthier, take steps to improve their health and so forth. And there's a certain comfort level, you know, lots of people are, oh, but I like Dr. Smith, I'm so comfortable with him. But you start getting them indoctrinated into that clinic setting, one or two experiences with them, they trust it more, and you can educate your employees to help participate. You want them to be invested in it for their own benefit. And you can also offer them savings as well. So both financial and quality of life. So.
And understand that that an on-site clinic is aspirational at this point. That is not something that we are in a position to be able to bring to fruition this next fiscal year, but it is something that we can aspire to and move in the direction of getting for the benefit of all of our employees and their dependents. Those dependents would be able to take advantage of that clinical setting when and if we get to that point. But we'll be bringing more information to you and hopefully some solutions again at the budget at the beginning of the budget process next week.
Do we have any statistical trends or anything that show us where those high claims are coming from? Like, is it any safety concerns, maybe occurring in the streets department, or is there any kind of, are we following any kind of trying to see where those high claims are and what could be the cause of them?
We do. We have a breakdown of the large medical claims that are having a big impact and the large pharmaceutical claims or costs.
And do we see a trend somewhere?
I'm hedging because there's a healthcare, there's a issue. So we can't even, we're not allowed to see who the identity of the individuals are, but we can see the medical conditions and so forth. And some are what they are, but some, again, with regard to treatment and sources in the case of the pharmaceuticals, the prescription drugs, sources and ways those are obtained and provided. There's an opportunity for savings in that regard. There's certain situations, certain medical conditions that education of the people can have a big impact on, assuring they take their meds, assuring that they're taking the correct meds and so forth like that. So we do have some information, but.
Sorry, I mean to interrupt. I don't think this is not a problem that we're the only ones experiencing it. I don't think any of our claims are outliers. I think they're pretty consistent with what the industry's seeing. I mean, there's some popular drugs out there that cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And, we're just like everybody else.
Yeah, good, very good point, very good point.
Do we have a lot of accidents on the job, things like that in the different departments?
I mean, it depends on the category and classification. And those obviously fall under the workers' comp thing. So they don't drive our insurance rates cars that they do over on the workers' comp side. So we have a fairly high frequency, but the severity of those, for the most part, with a few exceptions, is very, very small. And we are actively, I think I may have said in a previous meeting, but we have ramped up our safety efforts and education, and there'll be much more communication with department managers. It's not that there isn't already a fair amount of that happening, but that's only going to increase to try to cut down on the employee injury and property damage liability claims as well. So
I've been, and the staff will attest to this, I've been harping on property and liability claims and issues since I've been here. property and liability, reducing property and liability claims is something that we have a lot of control over. So to the extent that department heads are working very hard, I think, to make sure that our claims on the workers' comp side and on the property liability side are being reduced. And I think they're putting more of an emphasis on that because obviously claims experience drives our premium costs there. And in fact, we're meeting sometime soon with when's Bethany coming down? From
Late
Smyrna?
month or
Yeah.
just at the start.
In a few weeks, representatives from our property and liability and workers' comp insurance provider will be here. That we'll be meeting with them as we do annually to talk about our claims experience and how we can make it better. But we'll be bringing to you potential changes to our health insurance brokerage for you to contemplate and discuss as part of the budget process.
Is there a ballpark number for a clinic, in-house clinic, ballpark cost? What it would cost us?
No.
Did you want to give out?
Councilmember Waring, we haven't even gotten that far.
I wasn't sure, just curious.
Yeah.
I know that's something to talk about for a while.
Yeah. No, I will tell you that I am personally interested in that. I think it's something that we should definitely aspire to. And given our size in terms of the number of lives that we cover, it could be significantly helpful to us. And there obviously there's potential for partnering with others, either in the public sector or in the private sector for that matter. So we don't necessarily have to go at this alone. We can maximize some efficiencies there with partnerships.
You think MUSC being state funded could give us a discount on clinics?
We'll see.
Do you have more on the financial update?
I do have a couple more things you can move past.
That's amazing.
So, when I came here, actually, I just celebrated my 18-year anniversary with the town. We didn't have an IT department when I first started. I was the IT department. I used to always joke that I wanted employee of the month in my department once again. And that was for several years. We've grown significantly. This last incident that we had in the summer really made the push for combining the IT departments. We have a lot of talent in public safety, IT as well, and as well as ours. So we were thinking of combining the departments. This is an organizational chart, obviously not approved or anything yet. This is something we were thinking about. Sean will be, this would be the town-wide IT. It wouldn't just be public safety. This wouldn't be town hall. This would be streets, stormwater, maintenance, all the departments, parks and rec. These people would serve the whole town. This position here, this network administrator, we got that approved back in, I think it was October, November last year, but we haven't hired that yet because of the revenue streams, and we decided to delay that to make sure we had it funded properly. The only position we're going to ask for, and I guess that's when the departments come up later, is this technical services supervisor. We wanted it to look like the technical services supervisor would be managing the help desk and the end users, and we would have 2 technicians under that supervisor. Sean will be the technical services manager. We already have Alicia. She's our network security administrator, or she will be. She came to us last year as well, doing a great job. I don't know, probably a lot of you haven't met her yet, but y'all will. But that's kind of how we wanted to look. We wanted to combine more kind of economies of scale, combine all the services. We're using our own help desk software, Sean and IT over there are using a different one. We want to combine that, like Jira is actually part of that. We have our own, they have their own. We want to, like I say, combine that. The way we do the backups, the way we do the security, we want all that combined. We want IT staff to be able to go from public safety back to town hall, back and forth, cover each other. We want to be able to have multitude of skills and everybody learn different areas of it, so they can kind of cover each other. But this is what we were thinking of. This is the only ask we're gonna be put in there, that's supervisor position. But if y'all have any questions on that.
This would be a new department or division on the organizational chart. This is going to sound sort of counterintuitive, but this would actually be helping to break some silos. And even though it looks like maybe we're creating one, I would suggest that this is more of an umbrella that we would be creating with this department that would cover all of the town, as Lenny suggested, and allow these guys and gals, not that they aren't already doing this, but allow them from a command and control standpoint to work more seamlessly than maybe they have been able to in the past. So this is something that Lenny brought to me, he and Sean brought to me early on, and I think it's probably something that is a good suggestion. It just would change the organizational chart and some functionality in terms of salaries, changes in dollars or anything like that. I don't foresee anything at this point, but this is something that we'll be bringing to you as a part of the FY26 budget. No action to take right now.
And most municipalities operate, right? Most of them don't have it separate.
Lenny and Chief and Sean, I recall during the cyber attack, we had a briefing from, I believe it was SLED, and maybe the gentleman who supported us from Berkeley County. And they pointed out how woefully understaffed we were. And I remember us asking a question of how many people would a police force and a town of our size should we have? And to my recollection, this is still significantly smaller than what they said would be normal. But this is something you guys feel comfortable with?
It's something we can build on, definitely, and move forward with, yes.
Last year at the mid-year, when we were over at the chamber, I had mentioned that Berkeley County has somewhere around 40 IT people. Dorchester County has somewhere over the 25 mark. Consolidated Dispatch in Charleston County had over 20. And then here we were in the town with really 2.5. And so this has been long overdue. It's one of those things that just should have been done a long time ago, and it could stand to grow. But when this happened, I remember in the meeting, both you and Councilwoman Wilson were present. I had mentioned this is the time that we need to do this now, because we're rebuilding. Before, everything had been just, public safety was so driven in a different direction that we were siloed on purpose for that, because Lenny was handling town hall affairs, parking garage. We were handling police, fire, all the fire departments, all the networking, all the security, all the CJIS requirements by the FBI and SLED. So this was the perfect time, an unfortunate circumstance, but really to help COM do this. But yes, sir, you are correct.
Okay.
And Lenny, you did say you wanted to add a technician, right?
Just this one position. We've already had the network administrator recruited. We just haven't hired that yet. Like I said, we were purposely waiting until later in the fiscal year. Just this one position, which is technical service. That's like a help desk supervisor, basically. They would handle all end user requests, assign tickets, and actually perform the work orders and stuff like that.
Instead of me texting Lenny at all hours,
No.
saying,
Well,
hey,
I was
come
just
help me.
thinking that means I can't bother Lenny anymore. That's not the case. But, it's just making it more efficient, and we can actually get the stuff a lot quicker. Anyway, that was the suggestion. Like I said, we actually have, it's a small staff. I don't anticipate if we get this one position, I don't think we're gonna really need a ton of people after that initially, maybe in the future. But I think that with this group of people here, again, a lot of our systems, can be managed cloud-based. So I don't think we're gonna need much staff to do that. But I think this gives us an opportunity again to be proactive, not just put out fires, to anticipate events, to streamline processes, to not just, react to everything. So,
You'll see this again, throughout the budget process.
All right.
thank you.
Thanks, Lenny. Thanks for all you do.
3 minutes. Can I add one quick question?
Oh,
Will you or your department be able to handle things like AI chatbots for our website for streamlining staff operations or any other technology?
Yeah,
that we
we're
have?
actually using AI already, our finance manager uses AI. That's some of the charts you saw earlier, right? But actually, Chris Mikowski, manages our website, and we've discussed, the AI chatbots, and I can let him.
Yeah, we can add in a chatbot, that is a possibility. Our search engine that is currently on the website is AI-based, when we redesigned it last year. The chatbot is an add-on that we can add in for Civic Plus. They would be the ones that would oversee the security of that. That's not really gonna be on Lenny. Civic Plus kind of holds all that.
So I am going to municipal association meeting in March, and one of the topics is AI, specifically for municipalities, power municipalities using it.
Yeah.
That's one of our topics. So we're definitely looking at it.
I think I've read there's so much technology that could maybe help you guys.
There's a huge amount. I mean, like all things, there's good and there's bad, like the internet, a lot of good stuff, a lot of bad stuff, AI same way. But we just scratched the surface on, there's a ton of stuff. we can do.
Thank you.
I'll just finish up with I just wanted to cover 2 things. First of all, I wanted to just clarify that this IT budget is basically, we're just gonna redistribute. We're gonna redistribute those charges that are in other departments and put it into one department. So except for adding, software for people, there will not be any additional costs relative to that. And that's gonna take some work and, a lot of teamwork, to try to get all those numbers together. I just wanted to kind of expand on a little bit FY26 budget, items. We are going to try to put in front of you basically anything that you have discretion over spending. And we've only done the bottom 3, they're in green, general fund, hospitality, and stormwater. That's typically all that we have really had any action on an annual basis for budget. But the other funds, I'd like to basically put in front of you, even if we don't spend. We don't have control on how much revenue is generated in those funds, but we can do some projections and look at some of the spending there. Victims Advocate, for just one example, I mean, that money comes from the court, and there are certain state parameters that have to be followed as far as spending on that, those funds, but you hire somebody, and you get equipment, and you do some of those things. So just want to kind of do some of that. So all those funds, I'd like to create a debt service fund that basically puts all our debt there and has transfers to each of the sources that we get. So it's less complicated when I'm trying to explain to somebody this is what all our debt looks like, and not in 3 different pieces and 3 different funds. It will still come from those funds, but it'll kind of all be reported in one central location.
This will be one budget document. We're not gonna ask you to take multiple votes on every one of those things, but you will see all of those elements in a budget document.
And that's like today, or is that at the full budget?
When we get to the full budget. So this will be, again, this is the working process as far as getting all that in front of you. And again, I just wanted to, I'm hoping to have at least the beginnings of a 3 to 5 year, probably 3 years to start, some kind of budget outlook, plan, projection that we can start with. just something to get us started so we can try to plan for.
That's awesome. Will all of our funds be audited this year or only like our general fund and special revenue fund? All funds will be audited?
Yes.
All right. I know I said I wasn't gonna look backward, but Rhonda, fantastic job. When you walked into the town of Somerville, we were in a very challenging spot. You just mentioned audits. Audits were behind by multiple budget cycles. And you stepped in. I think the 24 budget was your second full budget that you were a part of because you had a half budget. This speaks not only to your leadership in getting us in a good fiscal discipline kind of standpoint, as well as your conservative projections while we had the sale of property and ARPA, sorry, ARPA was the old one.
Yeah.
ARPA funds, all of that extra money, but you held the line conservatively, and to see that we have a surplus, that speaks to our department heads for your discipline in sticking within budget, your conservative projections, and I'm excited that you have a handle. Now we have a foundation to where we can take the next step and take care and have this capital plan, as well as this 3 to 5 year projection. That's going to give us more information to make intelligent decisions, manage our assets, and understand those. I'm just really excited. Thank you. Excellent job. Very good. Yeah.
We're all in the boat together.
And I'll just say, Rhonda, she is always, I'll walk in her office ready to ask her a ton of questions, and she's always there for me, so I appreciate it.
And it's a mess, I know it's a mess.
With that, are we going to lunch?
How long are we eating lunch? What's the time limit? What'd you put on that?
I didn't know.
15 minutes?
45 minutes?
I just took us down.
Does anybody want to bless the food ahead of time? Hearing none, if you don't mind, I'll bless the food. Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for this day and this opportunity to come together, Lord, in service to the town. We ask for a hedge of protection around each and every one of those members of our town who serve our citizens each and every day. Now, please bless the food that we are about to receive. Bless the hands that prepared it. Use it to nourish us so that we may better serve you and those around us. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.